Live, where news comes first. This is WECT News.
Thanks so much for joining us for WECT News at 11. I'm Daniela Henke.
And I'm John Evans.
Now at 11, a new policy is in place to control what teachers and even staff can display in New Hanover County schools. It's changed from when a school board committee recommended it late last month. WECT's Emma Dahlin Mayer heard that decision and also the vote tonight by the county school board. Emma, board members voted on a certain list of things that can be seen.
Yellow, the policy recommended by a board committee said teachers and staff could display more items than originally proposed, including family photos, student artwork, and materials that represent other nations. But a motion tonight removed those things.
Striking 3 items. Strike number 1, other nations. Strike other 2, family photos. Strike number 3, student art. Otherwise, I move to pass the policy as it's written with those 3 strikeouts.
New Hanover County School Board finalized a policy Tuesday night limiting what can be displayed in classrooms and on school campuses. The policy passed 4-1. Board member Stephanie Craybill is the only one who voted in opposition to the policy. 2 other board members who had voiced opposition, Hugh McManus and Stephanie Walker, did not attend the meeting.
I am just so opposed to this.
According to the new policy, the only things that can be displayed are signs or flags representing the United States, the state of North Carolina, New Hanover County, the school's name or mascot, post-secondary institutions, school-sponsored events, sponsorships, and approved curriculum. One former teacher says she is appalled by the policy, and she believes it is a clear violation of the First Amendment.
So I think that the whole idea of limiting what teachers can put on their walls is crazy. All kids, whether they're new in the country, new in the city, or they grew up here, I think they're going to feel very frustrated and very deprived. Blank walls are no fun.
Many people have questioned how art and history teachers are simply supposed to teach at all, with the board no longer allowing student art or flags from other countries to be displayed in class. When Craybill asked fellow board members how students at the International School of Gregory are expected to learn effectively, Chairman Pete Wildeboer said they were out of time to discuss the issue and the question went unanswered. Daniela, I did ask Pat Bradford for an interview as the board prepared to go into closed session. I wanted to ask her why she motioned to remove several materials from the policy when she agreed to recommend them in the policy committee meeting. She told me she did not have time for the interview. I do plan to follow up with her on the issue tomorrow, and I did reach out to her just a little bit ago via phone and did not hear back either.
Emma, thanks for that update and report tonight.
The school board also voted 3-2 to use a new law firm. Crossley, McIntosh & Collier will become general counsel for the board starting next month. Right now, the Vogel law firm represents the school district, but that firm's contract runs out June 30th. The school board also approved using the Sink law firm for special education purposes.